Hey everyone, and welcome to RealFear Files, the place where the darkest, most spine-chilling stories come to life. Tonight, we're diving into 10 terrifying true encounters from truckers who face things on the road that defy explanation. These aren't just ghost stories. They're real experiences that will make you question what's really out there when the highway goes quiet. Before we hit the first story, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Doing so keeps us bringing you more of the creepiest tales, and don't worry, you can always change your mind later. And hey, we want you to be part of the fear. If you've got ideas for future episodes or creepy encounters you want us to cover, drop them in the comments. Some of the next terrifying tales could come straight from your suggestions. So buckle up, turn the lights down, and get ready. These stories are going to follow you home. Story 1. I was 40 when I took on a winter freight run that threaded through northern Idaho and stretched toward the western edge of Montana. The trucking company had just started offering these seasonal solo routes, and though I'd hauled long distance for years, something about the still, lonely winter drives called to me. Honestly, the paycheck was insane. I couldn't say no. One night, early in the season, I rolled into a tiny diner in a place called Eldridge. You wouldn't find it on most road maps. Just a few scattered buildings, a gas pump, and that diner with a single neon sign flickering through the heavy snow. I got there late, and by the time I killed the engine, the snow had gone from a soft drift to a full-on storm. I ducked inside, hoping for something hot and heavy to push back the cold. I slid onto a stool at the counter. A few seats down, a man was already eating. He glanced up, gave a small nod, and then, after a minute, started chatting. Said his name was Cole. Cole claimed he handled private deliveries for folks who didn't like paperwork. Cash only. No manifests, no logs. He said sometimes his drop-off points overlapped with the truck stops I used. Seemed believable. He looked normal enough, maybe early 30s, short hair, worn leather jacket that didn't match the freezing air outside. I noticed a faded military tattoo on his forearm. He said his dad had been a trucker too, and that he'd inherited the old rig after his father passed the spring before. There was something unnerving about him, yet calm, like he didn't feel the cold at all, or didn't care. We ate side by side, then lingered in the snow afterward, talking about crappy roads, lukewarm diner coffee, and other long-haul complaints. He offered me a cigarette, even though I'd said I didn't smoke. I accepted anyway. It was easier than arguing. Our shoulders hunched against the gusts, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the wind wasn't the only thing pressing in. Before we parted, we swapped numbers. Having someone to check in with during the winter seemed smart. Over the next few days, he started texting. First, small tips. Heads up, slick patch near Grantham. Visibility crap past mile marker 80. Then his messages got personal. He mentioned his mom lived near a town called Claremont, and that he dropped by to help with groceries and firewood. He told me about losing a girlfriend in a wreck the previous year. Said the house still felt empty and quiet, and that sometimes the silence weighed too heavy. I understood that road loneliness. It gnawed at you differently than any city silence. Mid-December, he told me about a short haul he was running. Just a few crates near Riston, close to the border. Not enough for a full rig, he said, and asked if I wanted to convoy with him for the last leg. He framed it as a safety measure. I agreed. I'd driven those roads before. Winter could get nasty, especially after dark. We met just north of Byron, at a truck stop buried in salted slush. Cole was there first, coffee in hand, black, no sugar. He also handed me a small pack of powdered mini donuts, the kind found in cheap vending machines. Said his mom used to pack them for him on frigid mornings. It was a small, oddly specific gesture, like a memory he rarely shared. We hit the back roads together, him leading. A narrow service road that twisted through the countryside, paved just enough to be legal. Snow fell thick and steady, and we crawled along, careful not to slide off the ice-slick edges. After about an hour, he pulled off into a small turnout. Said his engine light had flickered. I eased in behind him, tires crunching on ice, brakes whining. That's when the night shifted. Something about the air went off. Cole climbed out, then knocked on my passenger door. Said he'd let his rig cool off and wondered if he could sit in mine. I didn't see a reason to say no. The cold was biting, and we were deep in nowhere. He climbed in carrying a half-empty bourbon bottle, offered it to me like old pals. I took a sip. He drank like it was medicine. He noticed scars on my hands. "Welding?" I said. "Back when I worked maintenance." He nodded slowly, fell quiet. Then, out of nowhere, "I respect people who've been through real pain, not the ones who fake it for sympathy." I didn't know how to answer. He didn't seem angry, just studying me, testing me. "Do you think most people lie about trauma?" he asked. I said nothing. He smiled. "Quiet types are good." Then, without warning, he leaned back and closed his eyes, breathing slow. I waited a few minutes, then went to check his truck. Everything looked normal. Engine steady, no smoke, no smell of burning. But when I leaned into his cab, I spotted the paperwork. Not that I was digging. It was just there in the glove box. The registration listed a different first name. N. Reed. Not even close to Cole. My pulse spiked. I snapped a quick photo, eased my rig back, and got in. By the time I turned around, he was awake again, humming that faint tune. He didn't mention the paperwork. He just asked, "Ever been near Britain?" Then, a second later, "What's your new company address again? That warehouse off Route 17? I hadn't told him anything about work. That warehouse wasn't public knowledge. My heart kicked. I faked a call to dispatch, really just opened the camera and took a short video of him sitting there. Couldn't hurt. I told him I'd be pushing on solo and pulled away. Drove straight to a monitored lot outside Nettle Ridge, parked between two company rigs under the glare of floodlights. Sleep didn't come easy that night. The next morning, I woke to a sky smeared gray with low clouds. My rig sat cold under the floodlight, the metal panels stiff with frost. I kept thinking about Cole. No, Reed. Sitting in my cab the night before, smiling like nothing had happened. There was a hollow weight in my chest, a sense that the woods and frozen roads weren't just empty, they were waiting. I started the engine, the cab filling with the low hum of diesel, and tried to push the thought away. Winter hauling had its own dangers, but this felt different. I pulled onto the highway, wheels biting into slushy black ice. Every mile stretched the silence, broken only by the faint hum of my rig and the occasional whisper of wind through the vents. Reed didn't text that morning, and part of me was relieved. But the relief was thin, brittle. By late afternoon, my phone buzzed. A single message. Saw a fox near the second turnoff past Grantham. Slippery. My stomach clenched. How did he know where I was? My route wasn't that public. I tried shrugging it off. Maybe coincidence. Truckers spot foxes all the time. But the thought didn't stick. I remembered the way he had asked about my warehouse, his voice calm, almost casual, like he already had a map in his head of where I worked. That night, I decided to pull into a small rest stop off Route 9, tucked under tall pines. Snow was falling again, heavier than the day before. The lot was empty except for a lone sedan. I shut down, lights reflecting off the frost-crusted asphalt. I ate cold sandwiches from the cab, scanning the tree line. Shadows stretched long, swaying in the wind, and for a split second, it looked like someone was moving just at the edge of vision. I shook it off. My nerves were on edge. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. I froze. A message from an unknown number. "Do you sleep heavy?" My hands gripped the steering wheel. I didn't reply. Minutes passed. Then another. "I can hear the diesel running. Don't worry, I'm not far." A chill ran down my spine. That wasn't coincidence. Reed, or whoever he really was tracking me. I checked the lot. Nothing moved, just the empty shadows and my own rig. But the message hit like ice water. My pulse jumped, every instinct screaming to get out. I fired up the engine and eased back onto the road, snowflakes stinging the windshield. I didn't dare look in the mirrors more than a glance. The highway was empty, a ribbon of white stretching into the black. My headlights caught the occasional drift, but nothing else. Still, the words clung in my mind like smoke. I'm not far. By dawn, I'd reached the stretch of road near Riston, the same area where I had convoyed with him. The memory of that night made the snow feel heavier, thicker, like it wanted to hide things. I slowed, scanning every pull-off, every shadow among the pines. My rig rattled with the cold, tires squealing over the ice, but I couldn't speed up. Not safely. Not with him, or whatever he was, so close. Then I saw it. A shape, tall and narrow, standing at the edge of the tree line. For a split second, I thought it was a snow-laden signpost, but the outline shifted. A hood, the faint reflection of eyes catching the morning light. I slammed on the brakes, heart hammering, but when I swung the headlights, it was gone. Nothing but a tree, its trunk glinting white with frost. My breath came fast. I was being watched. I didn't stop for the rest of the run. I pressed on through the slush, radio dead silent, eyes flicking to every shadow. By the time I reached a wider stretch near the border, the sun broke weakly through clouds. Frost glittered on every surface, and the road seemed almost unreal, like a stage set for some frozen nightmare. I checked my mirrors obsessively. No sign of a rig behind me. But the sense of being followed didn't fade. That evening, I pulled into a small town for fuel. Streets were deserted, snow piled in the corners like forgotten ghosts. I filled my tank, hands trembling slightly. And there he was. Reed, tall, hood pulled over, standing under a flickering streetlight. He didn't wave, didn't speak, just looked. That same calm, unreadable expression, like he had been waiting for me. I felt the urge to bolt, to leave before he even knew I saw him. But part of me froze, watching him, seeing the way the dim light hit the scars on his hands, the hollow stare. He lifted a hand in a slow, deliberate wave. Not friendly, not threatening, just there, watching. I got back in my rig, locked the doors, and kept my engine running. Every instinct screamed to go, but I had to be careful. Reed wasn't like any driver I'd met. This was personal, calculated. By nightfall, I reached a small lot outside Nettle Ridge, the same place I'd parked before. Floodlights carved long shadows, but I felt safer among other trucks. I kept my rig between two company trucks, like a barrier. My sleep was shallow, fitful. Every creak of metal, every gust of wind felt amplified. Every shadow seemed to shift. I could still feel him, somewhere beyond the lot, waiting. Over the next few days, he texted again, always cryptic, always close. Didn't expect snow this heavy? Or, careful on the left bend past mile 60. The messages weren't friendly. They weren't casual. They were reminders. I wasn't alone. I wasn't safe. And he knew it. The final straw came one night on a back road near Claremont. I was slowing for an icy patch when headlights appeared in the rear view. Too narrow a beam for a truck, his rig would have wider lights. A car. No license plate visible. He followed me for miles, staying just out of range, a dark silhouette creeping behind the flakes of snow. My heartbeat pounded like war drums. I'd been careful, vigilant, but he had found me anyway. I pulled into a well-lit lot, hoping to shake him, but he didn't park. He circled, engine barely audible, then disappeared into the white haze. The sense of dread didn't lift. It was alive, crawling under my skin. I knew then. He wasn't just a driver. He was a predator, moving in the cold, silent, patient. From that night on, I changed my routes, my stops, my habits. Every shadow, every crackle of radio static made me glance over my shoulder. I never saw him again directly, but the feeling never left. The lingering presence, the whisper that someone was always just out of sight. And I learned, the hard way, that some people aren't just strangers on the road. Some people are something darker, hunting the silence you think is safe. Even now, years later, when winter winds scrape across the rig and snowdrifts cling to the edges of the highway, I feel it. That cold, patient stare from beyond the trees. The way the shadows breathe, waiting for you to slip. And I remember Reed, or Cole, or N. Reed, or whatever name he went by. The one who didn't just drive trucks. The one who drove fear itself. Story 2. I'd spent most of my adult life behind the wheel, hauling freight across the plains and prairies of the Midwest. My truck cab had been my bedroom more than my own apartment. The work was steady, predictable. A little lonely, sure, but it paid the bills. This particular gig came through a friend of a friend. Off the books, quiet. No manifests, no receipts, just a name, a pickup spot, and cash on delivery. They told me to swing by a tiny South Dakota town called Kiever. The guy I met there didn't waste words. Said the load was sensitive medical gear. Destination, a rural hospital just past Delling, North Dakota. Small place, barely registered on GPS apps. The weirdest part was the trailer waiting for me. It was sealed tight when I arrived. No logos, no numbers, no indication of ownership. Just a big, blank, white van. No refrigeration either, which struck me as odd for medical equipment. "Keep it locked the whole way," the guy said. "No stops over 15 minutes. Don't open the trailer, no matter what." I raised an eyebrow. He didn't flinch. I asked what was inside. He shook his head. "Better if you don't know." At that point, I'd seen enough shady loads to know asking questions was a bad idea. I signed a brief release form, barely a paragraph, and climbed into my Kenworth just as the sun was sinking behind rolling hills. It was early January, the wind slicing across the prairie like knives. An hour into the run on Highway 85, the CB radio crackled. Static at first, then a voice buried in the fuzz, but too jumbled to make sense. Just a second. I reached to turn it down, figured it was some stray frequency bouncing off hills. Happens all the time. No big deal. That changed when I got near LaVille. I had turned east onto a county back road, Route 18, hoping to shave a little time off. Pulled into a tiny fuel stop that looked frozen in the 1980s. One pump, a dingy little storefront flickering under fluorescent lights. Card reader was dead, so I went inside. The clerk looked like he hadn't slept in days. Late 20s, maybe. Red parka barely zipped. He stared the whole time I pulled out my card. Not suspicious, just like I reminded him of something he couldn't place. I asked if he was okay. He squinted, said, "You just came through here." I shook my head. "No, came from the south." He didn't respond, just kept looking at me like I was the problem. Outside, I glanced at the pump. Full. I hadn't even touched it. Checked the tank anyway. Topped off. No smell of gas, no drips in the snow. Trailer untouched, seal still snug. No tracks in the snow behind it. Like someone else had filled it for me. I shook it off. Told myself I was tired and hungry. Further up the road, maybe near Ridge Hollow, I noticed the mirrors looked off. My convex mirrors should show the trailer and the road behind. Left mirror normal. Right mirror blank. Just a featureless white nothingness. Pulled over to check. Walked around the trailer. Tires fine. Seal intact. Doors locked. Banged on the side. Hollow, echoing metal. Nothing else. Took a breath. Climbed back in. Mirrors were normal again. Maybe the angle of light or snow reflecting weird. Night came on. Heater started acting strange around midnight. At first I thought it was me, layering up. Then the cab got hot. Not warm. Hot. Like someone cranked it to max. Turned the dial down. Nothing. Off completely. Still steaming. Opened a window. Cold air stung my face, but inside stayed fiery, like some other presence was running the cab. Then the smell hit. Faint, dry, musty. Old paper or fabric left out too long. Not smoke, not mechanical, just cooked. Pulled over on a packed snow shoulder, killed the engine, stepped out. Night was dead quiet. Sky full of stars. Air sharp enough to bite. That's when I noticed the padlock. Gone. Trailer latch bare. No scratches, no broken pieces. Seal still wrapped around, unbroken. I reached for my phone. No signal. CB dead. Air itself felt thick, heavy. Thought about calling it in, but what would I even say? Climbed back in, got moving. 2 hours left to drop off. The sooner, the better. Then it started. Knocking. 3 soft raps from inside the trailer, right behind the cab. I froze, eyes on the road, waiting. Nothing. 10 minutes later, 2 more knocks. Mirrors clear, snow drifting across asphalt. Pulled out flashlight, circled the trailer. Everything cold, untouched. Then I saw it. Plastic seal lying in the snow, snapped clean. Lock still on, but shackle slightly off. Didn't touch it. Got back in. Turned heater back on. Cold air this time. Controls untouched. A mile later, a sign. Welcome to North Dakota. GPS went black seconds later. Not glitching, just died. Blinked, looked up. Same sign passed by again. Identical. Crooked post, dent in the corner. Stomach sank. Hit brakes, pulled over. Trip meter lost 4 miles. A shadow flickered in the passenger mirror. Low, fast, skipping across snow. Jumped out. Flashlight swept the field. Empty. Passenger seat warm. Real warm. Like someone just sat there. I don't carry passengers. Didn't stop again. 40 minutes later, the facility appeared. Flat concrete, windowless, 1 buzzing light over the door. Parked, shut off engine. Boots crunching ice. Trailer latch hanging loose. No lock. No seal. Doors closed but unsecured. A man came out. No jacket. Short-sleeved shirt. Didn't seem cold. "You're early," he said. I told him I didn't stop. He nodded. Walked to trailer. Didn't touch it. just stared at the doors. "You should leave now. That's it." I didn't wait. No questions. Back in cab, fired up, drove off. One glance in mirror. Floodlight snapped off. Man gone. I drove straight through the night. No music, no CB. Just white lines, quiet. Montana sunrise. Pulled into a diner next to a way station. Far corner. Opened trailer. Empty. Clean. No crates, no scuffs, nothing. Inside the diner, washed hands for 10 minutes, just to feel. Mirror showed the same face. Didn't trust it. Drove home that night. Parked the rig. Haven't touched another winter job since. Now, I check every door, twice, whenever snow hits. The next morning, I woke with a stiff neck. My cab frozen on the lot just outside Montana. The sun was weak, barely pushing through clouds, the wind gnawing at exposed skin. I kept thinking about the trailer, that empty white box, and the man in the short-sleeved shirt who'd just appeared out of nowhere. Something about the whole run felt wrong, like I'd glimpsed something I wasn't meant to. I fired up the engine, the cab rattling to life, tried to shake off the night's paranoia. But it clung like frost, and the memory of the warmth in that empty passenger seat refused to leave. I pressed on, following the quiet highway north. Nothing moved except drifting snow and the occasional skeletal tree. But the road didn't feel empty. Not really. The shadows seemed too heavy, too still, like they were waiting for me to make a mistake. Hours into the drive, my phone buzzed. No caller ID. A single text. "You left early." My stomach dropped. I didn't reply. Didn't even touch the thing. It wasn't a prank. Too precise. Too knowing. My eyes flicked to the mirrors. The trailer was still locked, sealed, or at least what remained of the seal. Nothing else had moved. Yet I could feel it. Something pressing in the cab with me, like the air itself had grown alive. I stopped at a tiny diner along Route 12, one of those relics from the 70s. Neon sign buzzed, flickering, casting jagged shadows across the lot. I needed coffee, needed light, needed normal. The place was empty except for a man sitting in a booth near the back, hunched over a cup. Didn't notice me. Didn't move. The second I stepped in, I felt a chill. Not from the wind, from inside. I kept it short, coffee in hand, eyes scanning every corner. Every reflection on the linoleum felt like it was moving just slightly too fast. Or too slow. Heart kept thumping in time with something invisible. When I left, the man was gone. No sign he'd ever existed. Back on the highway, the cab heater decided to start again. Hot. Scorching. No control. I yanked the power, windows down, freezing wind biting. The smell returned. Dry, musty, like paper left to rot in the sun. I pulled over on a side road, heart hammering, flashlight in hand. Around the trailer, nothing. Cold. Untouched. Seal on the latch. Gone. Lock still in place but slightly ajar. I climbed back in, gripping the wheel tight. Snow was falling heavier now, wind screaming like it wanted to push me off the road. I could see tire tracks in the white, but not my own. Tracks that appeared and vanished. My pulse shot. I tried the CB. Silence. Not static. Silence. Like someone had sucked it out of the air. The hours stretched like rubber. By midnight, I was exhausted. Lights from a small town in the distance gave me relief. Pulled into the lot of a shuttered gas station. Snow packed underfoot. Trailer doors still closed but unsecured. I thought about calling it in, telling someone, anything. But the feeling in my chest, the suffocating weight of eyes on me, told me, don't. That's when I heard it. A soft scratching from inside the trailer. Low, deliberate, almost conversational. I froze. Minutes passed. The sound stopped. Then another 3 scratches, lighter this time, like fingers dragging across metal. My hands gripped the wheel tight, knuckles white. Checked the mirrors. Clear road, no footprints. Snow drifting, undisturbed. I stepped out, flashlight sweeping around. Nothing. Just my rig, quiet, the night deep and endless. I circled the trailer again. That's when I noticed the seal, plastic, snapped in half, lying in the snow. The lock shifted slightly on the latch, like someone had toyed with it. I didn't touch it, didn't dare. Climbed back in, started driving. Heater off, windows cracked. The warmth, or whatever it was, had stopped, but I could still feel the presence, clinging. At some point, Route 17 blurred past. Sign, "Welcome to North Dakota." GPS blinked, then died. Black screen. Trip meter rolled back miles. I blinked. Same sign passed again. Same dented post, same crooked lean. My stomach sank. I slammed brakes, pulled off, flashlight scanning the fields. Empty. Then movement in the passenger mirror. Fast, low, almost slipping across the snow. Jumped out. Beam across the open field. Nothing. Passenger seat warm. Real warm. Like someone had just been there. I don't carry anyone. My pulse hammered in my ears. Didn't stop again. Couldn't. Finally, the hospital appeared. Windowless, flat concrete, one buzzing light over the door. Parked, shut off engine, boots crunching ice. Trailer doors closed but unsecured. Lock gone. Seal gone. A man stepped out. Short-sleeved shirt. No coat. Didn't seem cold. "You're early," he said. I told him I hadn't stopped. He nodded, walked to the trailer, stared at the doors. Didn't touch. "Leave. That's it." I didn't wait. Firing up the cab, drove off. One glance in the rear view. The light snapped out. Man gone. Trailer behind me, empty, silent. Drove through the night. No music, no CB chatter. Only snow and white lines. By sunrise, Montana on the horizon. Pulled into a diner at a way station, parked in the far corner. Opened the trailer. Nothing. Empty. Clean. No crates, no marks. Like nothing had been there. Inside the diner, washed my hands over and over. Watched water bead and roll off my fingers, trying to feel something, anything. Mirror showed the same face. Familiar, but distant. Didn't trust it. Back in the cab that night, I drove home. Parked it in the garage. Haven't touched another off-the-books load since. Now, when winter winds sweep across the plains, when snow piles along the edges of the highway, I double-check every latch, every door, every seal. Twice. Because I know the white trailer, the snapped lock, the warmth in an empty seat. They're not things you forget. And some things don't ever let you go. Story 3. I'd just wrapped a brutal 12-hour run through freezing sleet, black ice, and sideways snow that would make even the most seasoned drivers white-knuckled. Clock was past 1:30 a.m., closer to 2, when I pulled off I-94 just beyond a quiet stretch outside Harland Ridge. There's a rest area there I've used a dozen times. Basic concrete loop, flickering vending machines, those buzzing sodium lights that bathe everything in a sickly yellow glow. At that hour, all I cared about was parking, stretching my back, and finishing the last of my thermos. The lot was practically empty, just one salt truck idling at the far end with its lights dimmed low. I parked, logged my location on the tablet, and stepped out for a walk. It's routine, keeps me sane. After hours in a cab, you have to stretch, tap the panels, check the tires, remind yourself you're still human. Cold hit me like a slap, dry, sharp, and clearing. Boots crunching on crusted snow, I took a deep breath. For a moment, everything felt unnervingly still. Too still. Back in the cab, I flipped open the tablet. Sync lag happens in these remote spots. Nothing unusual at first. But when it finally refreshed, I froze. 2 identical trip summaries sat on the screen. Same origin, same destination, same load. Only difference, the second entry added a line I didn't recognize. Exit 73, wrist fuel and auto. I know that stretch of I-94 like the back of my hand. Exit 73 doesn't exist. Between 72 and 74, it's just flat, frozen highway with scrubland on either side. No ramps, no service roads, nothing. I told myself it was a GPS glitch or some leftover data. Still, the name crawled under my skin. I've cataloged every truck stop between Montana and Minnesota. Wrist fuel and auto? Never heard of it. I tapped for more info. Nothing. Blank screen, just the coordinates. Tried radio dispatch, mostly to see if someone would confirm it was a fluke. Only static. Fine. Ignore it. But then the salt truck was gone. No engine, no lights, nothing. Snow around it undisturbed, like it had never been there. My brain split in two. One half reasoning, the other panicking. I walked the loop again. Everything was normal. Tires, doors, panels, all untouched. But when I climbed back in, my stomach sank. Something was on the passenger seat. A damp, folded receipt. Thermal paper curled in the cold. Coffee, a pack of jerky. Pump 4, wrist fuel and auto. No card number, no timestamp. Just the items and the name. I don't scare easily. I've seen rollovers, breakdowns, even a hijack attempt. But that slip of paper crawled under my skin. I tossed it out the window. Instantly, the tablet chimed. That phantom waypoint now blinked red. A new prompt. Pending delivery check-in. Confirm manifest. I dismissed it. Screen froze. When it returned, a new line appeared. Freight drop overdue by 13 days. I checked the manifest. Everything matched. Every pallet. Every barcode. But beneath the standard copy, a second sheet I hadn't noticed. Same cargo ID, same items. Final line reading. Final checkpoint. Confirm on arrival. Beside it, the coordinates of the blinking red dot. I should have shut it down, called it a glitch. But I started the engine. The GPS split. One side my planned route, the other a straight shot to exit 73. It said I was only 10 miles away. Didn't make sense. Didn't matter. I pulled back onto the highway, eastbound. Past mile marker 71, I saw it. Rusted green letters half covered in frost. Exit 73. It shouldn't exist, but there it was. I merged onto the ramp. The road dipped behind a ridge. Once off the interstate, everything shifted. Quieter. Snow falling heavier, but the asphalt perfectly clear. A quarter mile in, The station appeared. Boxy building, faded awning, two lonely pumps humming under a weak canopy. Wrist fuel and auto. I coasted to pump 4. No life. No footprints except faint old indentations leading to the side door. Mostly blown over. Engine running, I stepped out. Door didn't slide open. I pushed it manually. Inside, stale, dry air, faint warmth from some ancient heater. Shelves dusty, snacks expired, windshield fluid yellowed. Silence. Total silence. Counter empty, just a lone bell. Security mirror in the corner caught my reflection, but off. Jacket mirrored, patches flipped. Then it turned its head before I did. I didn't think. I bolted. Back in the truck, slammed the doors, locked everything. Fuel gauge read full. Hadn't pumped a drop. Tablet cleared again. One line. Exit 73 confirmed. Manifest received. Back doors unlocked. Cargo fine. Strapped down. Except one crate lid shifted slightly. Inside, a sealed envelope. Pencil written, my name. Didn't touch it. Glove box, locked. Pulled onto the on-ramp. Station lights blinked out, one by one, then total darkness. Mirrors showed nothing. By the time I hit the highway, exit 73 gone. Just white snow. GPS recalibrated. No detour, no trace. I made the Milton delivery the next day, no delays. Manifest clean. Every pallet accounted for. The tablet chimed once more. Reconfirm manifest, Route 73 loop. Active delivery required. I closed it, packed up, and went home. 3 weeks passed before I took another run. But every time snow hits, I remember that night. That phantom station. That paper receipt. The way the GPS showed a place that shouldn't exist. Driving alone now, I check mirrors obsessively. Every shadow under a bridge, every flicker of a tree and headlight sets me on edge. I avoid side roads, avoid unknown exits. Even familiar stretches feel wrong after that. The memory is sticky, like winter itself wants to remind me. Sometimes I imagine stepping off the cab, walking the shoulder, and seeing the lot exactly as it was. Empty, the snow untouched, everything normal. But then the seat is warm. The receipt sits folded there. And I remember the blink of the tablet, red waypoint flashing, waiting. I've tried rationalizing it. GPS error, sleep-deprived hallucination, static on the CB. But none of it explains the envelope, my name on it, sitting in a crate I hadn't touched. The station appeared out of nowhere, vanished the same way, faded into blackness behind me as if it had never existed. I can't shake the feeling. Some nights I imagine the station, the pumps, the cracked green sign, waiting for another trucker. Another rig, another long-haul driver, staring at the tablet, seeing that red dot, wondering if it's real or just a glitch. Winter drives aren't safe anymore. Not really. Not since exit 73. Now, I check every door, every lock, every seal. Twice. And still, sometimes, I swear I can see it in the mirrors, shadowy reflections where nothing should be. The cab gets hotter, then cold, then warm again. The air smells dry, musty, stale, like that night. I haven't returned to that stretch of I-94 alone since, and I don't plan to. Because I learned something important. Some roads aren't just asphalt and snow. Some exits don't exist. Some deliveries wait. And when they're ready, they'll call you back. Story 4. My shift at the City Archives Annex started at 7 sharp. I was finishing the morning inventory when the first weird thing hit me. The annex had been scraping by with a skeleton crew for months, so they stuck me in the basement verification room, a spot nobody wanted. Tight aisles, buzzing dehumidifiers that never quit, air that smelled like paper and metal. I had just finished tagging a stack of grant applications when the cabinet to my left moved on its own. Not slid, not bumped, just shifted a thumb width outward like someone had tugged it gently from the other side. I froze, pressed it shut, and waited. It stayed still. I rolled my cart to the mezzanine stairs, reaching for the clipboard I always clipped to the railing. Only it wasn't there. Instead, it rested on the top step, a fresh line of notes scrawled in my handwriting. The entry claimed I'd already completed the verification cycle on documents I hadn't even touched yet. I stared at it twice. The strokes, the spacing, they were mine, all mine. I checked my pockets. Pen-capped, clean. Not a chance I'd done this. I shook my head, blamed the morning chaos, overlapping tasks, fatigue. But the next thing that hit me made me pause. The shelving units, every single row, had shifted. 2 inches right. Not crooked, not messy. Relocated. All perfectly aligned, as if someone had lifted them and set them down elsewhere. My cart hadn't moved an inch. Wheels locked, exactly where I left it. I paced the aisle twice, counting tiles. The distance had changed. I didn't write it down. I just forced myself back to work. Mid-morning, I carried a batch of wire-bound ledgers toward the microfiche room. The lights were already on, chair angled toward the reader. A strip loaded, header showing my initials and the date. I hadn't even touched the cabinet yet. I ejected the strip, checked every drawer, made sure no one else had been there. Sign-out sheet blank. Stepped into the stairwell for air, and the door slammed behind me. Not a soft click. A snap, hard enough to rattle my chest. I pulled it open, waited, then let it swing. This time it eased shut naturally. Didn't look around. Back at my station, the binder had a new page of my handwriting documenting tasks I hadn't done. Shelf audit, hardware reboot, delivery sign-off. All phrased like I would. Signature at the same slant I've never been able to correct. Flipping back, all previous pages untouched. Morning deepened. Silence thickened. Usually I'd hear a cart rolling overhead or a courier backing up. Nothing. Clock in the logbook hadn't moved. Phone time correct. Assumed watch battery dead. Before lunch, I went upstairs to return a misplaced keyring. Hooked it in place, let go. Another identical ring already hung there. Same tag, same wear from my clumsy grip. 2 keys, same imperfections. I touched both. Same weight, same feel. Hung them slowly. Back downstairs, the dehumidifier next to the wall cut off for the first time in weeks. Nothing tripped on the strip. When I turned, my cart was now perfectly parallel to the opposite wall. Wheels locked. I hadn't touched it. I decided to inspect the building, make sure nothing was moving from structural shifts. Aisles normal at first. Far corner. Cabinet A17 swapped with A18. Labels same, but contents organized perfectly to my system. Pulling drawers confirmed it. Dust undisturbed. Tile uniform. I swallowed the tightness in my throat and forced myself to keep moving. At my station, the logbook had another line. Reattempt avoided. Do not check mezzanine again. Handwriting a bit rushed, but my rhythm unmistakable. I touched the ink. Faint warmth, like it was written seconds ago. Left the book open, tried to continue. Next batch of documents contained a file I'd already verified. Barcode marked complete. Initials there twice. My usual block letters and a looser hand that resembled mine, but wasn't. Check the system audit log. Showed I signed in and out of microfiche 3 times in the hour I'd been downstairs. Camera feed for the corridor stalled, looped seconds, then resumed. Frame drops only when doorway came into view. Overhead speaker let out a single tone. Not an alarm, not an announcement I'd ever heard. Compressors paused for a beat, then resumed. Lights in the hallway brightened like they were emerging from a dim setting I hadn't noticed. I decided to retrace every corner. Basement first. Shelves, carts, scanners. Marks of my presence, but not made by me. Check marks, notes, timestamps. My cadence, my pattern. The mezzanine called like it always did. Warning in the logbook burned in my mind, but I climbed anyway. Steps vibrated metal grates beneath. Halfway up, a vibration landed just behind my step, echoing mine, but out of sync. No change in air. No one behind me. Pattern consistent until the top. Mezzanine door opened. Key hooks revealed 3 identical sets. Same slight bend, faint scratch on tag holes. I touched them all. Room felt wrong. Not colder, not darker. Just wrong. Too perfect, too aligned, too expectant. I left without taking anything. Downstairs, my cart was gone. Not misplaced, gone. Every aisle, every corner, hallway to stairwell, nothing. At my station, the cart stood beside my chair again. Entire morning's work laid out, forms completed, my signature on every sheet. Logbook, final line, end it by leaving. I didn't grab my jacket or finish the inventory. Scanner off, intake cage locked with the first key I touched. I walked out. Didn't sign out. Crossed the street without looking back. Kept going until the building was just a few blocks behind me. I didn't pause. Each step away felt heavier than the last, like the building's walls were pressing through the ground beneath me. The streetlights flickered as I walked, not from electrical issues, but as if the air itself pulsed. I kept looking forward, refused to glance over my shoulder. Earlier, I'd rationalized things. Air systems, sleep deprivation, misaligned shelving. But the handwriting, the warmed ink, the duplicated keys, it wasn't normal. Nothing about it fit a natural explanation. And the cart, my cart, moving on its own, organized perfectly, it screamed intelligence behind the movements. The rest of the day passed in a fog. Coffee burned my tongue, and every sound in the annex's vicinity made me jump. I imagined the basement stacks sliding again, the dehumidifier cutting out, the mezzanine vibrating under unseen footsteps, shadows lingering just beyond the fluorescent glow. I avoided returning for any errands. By nightfall, I drove home slowly, headlights scanning empty streets. I kept imagining my own handwriting moving across pages, the warm ink leaving fresh notes I'd never made. Each step in the annex replayed in my mind, echoing vibrations, squeaks, and the unnatural silence when nobody else should have been there. Next morning I called in sick. Heart pounding, hands shaking, yet I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the 3 identical key sets, the duplicated rings, and the cart arranged perfectly with work I hadn't done. Ink still warm. My own cadence on the page, mocking me. I knew I had to return eventually. That night I went back. Dusk settling, shadows long. The annex doors loomed. I lingered outside, looking for movement. None. Nothing. I unlocked the side door, stepped in. Basement verification room silent, normal. cabinets aligned, cart unmoved. But when I glanced at the logbook, the last line I'd left, "End it by leaving," was gone, replaced by a new entry in my handwriting. "Tomorrow, same cycle. Follow pattern." I bolted again. No inventory, no keys. Just out the doors, across the street, into the dark. Since then, I never work alone in the annex. Always double-check doors, every cart, every drawer, every dehumidifier, every inch of the building. Shadows move where they shouldn't. Ink warms seconds after touching it. Keys duplicate, cabinets shift, work completes itself. Even leaving the street, I swear I hear faint rolling wheels behind me. Not my cart, something else. Something following my rhythm, matching my cadence. Waiting. I haven't returned for full shifts. I don't plan to. But sometimes, at night, I imagine the annex. Quiet, humming, moving on its own. Waiting. Aligning. Expecting me to step inside again. Because I've learned, some buildings aren't just structures. Some rooms keep track. Some carts complete themselves. And some logbooks wait for you to finish what you've never started. Story 5. Back then, I was running solo winter hauls, mostly fresh produce, rolling out of Oregon and heading east through Idaho, cutting across Wyoming and then down toward the Texas Panhandle. It was early December. Snow had hit harder than usual, but I'd been through worse. Chains strapped, fluids topped, spare parts loaded. I'd gone over the whole truck the night before, compartment by compartment, just to make sure. Everything seemed fine. Nothing out of place. Not yet. I didn't notice anything weird until I rolled into Twin Falls, pulled into a way station just outside town, and popped the sleeper latch to grab a jacket. The cold bit deeper than I expected. The sun was already fading behind the hills. My eye caught the food crate first. It had slid a little, not tipped or dumped, just nudged forward like something had pulled it and let go. Then I saw my tool roll. Zipped, but not how I normally roll it, tight and careful. This one looked rushed. Not sloppy, just different. The bolt cutters under the bunk had moved too, shoved forward so the ends nearly peeked out. I froze for a second, unsure what to make of it. Maybe the road outside Jerome had been rougher than I realized. I hit a few potholes and dips. Things shifted. That's what I told myself. I kept moving. By the time I reached Utah, things got stranger. Just south of Kingsley, I pulled up outside an old diner that had been closed for years. Truckers knew you could park there without anyone hassling you. No cameras, no lights, nothing but empty asphalt. I heated some chili in the cab, tossed crackers on top, locked everything down, snapped the curtains shut, and tried to get some sleep. I laid back, one arm under my head. At 2 a.m., I woke freezing. Not the usual nip. Nose burned, knees ached, cold gnawing at bones. Heater had cut out, which happens sometimes. I leaned up to check the panel. That's when I saw it. The curtain. Halfway open. I don't leave it open. Never. Habit is everything on the road. Curtain closed, heater on, doors locked. Those routines are survival. The cab was dead silent. No hum, no flicker, no drafts. I sat for a few seconds, trying to reason it out. Maybe I'd nudged it in my sleep. Maybe the clip failed. Maybe... I didn't sleep much after that. Next morning, fluids checked, tires inspected, walk-around done. I reached into the side compartment for my flashlight. Except it wasn't clipped in. Lying on the floor, beam pointing inward like someone had used it and set it down. I hadn't touched it in 3 days. That flashlight never leaves its holster by itself. My stomach sank. I started locking the sleeper from the inside, even on quick stops. 2 nights later, Nearing Green River, a storm warning popped over the CB. Some older guy, Colorado accent thick, called out westbound drivers. Said to avoid Rollins. Wind had already tipped a trailer earlier. Light loads like mine? Dangerous. I took it seriously. Pulled off at a gravel turnout past a deserted service plaza. No lights, only sideways snow dancing across the gravel. That night felt different. Not the cold, not rattles, not gusts. Silence. Thick, heavy, pressing silence. I stayed awake, hand wrapped around my wrench beside the pillow. Eyes staring at the ceiling, listening. Not for anything specific, just aware. No creak, no scrape, no rustle. But I knew someone else was in the cab. Not dream, not groggy, not adrenaline. Just presence. Heartbeat slow, steady, echoing in my ears. Impossible to ignore. Morning came. Everything untouched. GPS and CB unchanged, tools in place. I climbed down to check tires. Prints in the snow, not mine. Smaller, different tread. Looped once around the cab, then stopped. No second set, no truck next to me. Just that single pair, ending near my door. I didn't stop again until Cheyenne. At the TA, parked next to a livestock trailer, went inside to eat, double-checked every lock. Coffee in hand, back in the cab, and there it was. A single wool sock rolled halfway across the passenger seat. Dirty, soft, not stiff. I hadn't touched those since the first week of the run. Foot locker zipped shut. I stared. Opened the locker to confirm. Rest of the pair untouched. Heart thumping. I grabbed my tire iron, checked the truck top to bottom, every storage bin, cab, sleeper, side boxes. Nothing. No one. Just that sock. Sitting there, casual, deliberate. I was about to call highway patrol when a beat-up pickup rolled beside me. Window down. Driver nondescript. Button up, wind-chapped face. Nothing memorable. Hell of a cold one, huh? I nodded, too keyed up to chat. He leaned a little, asked, "You still park at that old freight yard by Ellison, behind the grain silos?" I froze. I'd parked there once, months ago, sick, fevered, just one night. Not logged, not mapped, no texts. Just me. "You a driver?" I asked, voice steady. He smiled tight, like he'd spilled too much already. "Used to be, that was all." Rolled up the window, drove off like it was nothing. I sat frozen a while. Final leg across northern Texas. No stops, no food. Pushed through, dropped the load 2 hours early, didn't wait for a signature. Parked at an abandoned lot on Amarillo's edge, behind chain link. That night, crashed hard. Shut everything, slept like a corpse. Morning. Frost glazed inside the windows. Breath thick, swirling. Engine dead. Battery drained. Boots were wrong. Neatly on the left, laces looped together. Always on the right. I stared. Opened the curtain. One word dragged through frost on the windshield. Finger written. Again. I didn't touch a thing. Didn't grab keys. Didn't zip jacket. Walked 2 miles to the Loves. Never looked back. Bought new clothes. Burner phone to call a tow. Truck hauled, sold off in pieces. Flagged it decommissioned at every registry. Bought a new rig on credit I shouldn't have. Cameras I didn't know how to run. Mapped every stop, documented everything. Photos, logs, times, dates. Stopped night driving. Avoided Wyoming winter routes. That's how I ended it. The last leg of the run had me skirting the Texas Panhandle, rolling through night that seemed to stretch forever. I didn't stop for gas, didn't bother grabbing a bite. The rig hummed beneath me, tires crunching over frost-hardened dirt as I pushed toward the receiver. I dropped the load early, 2 hours ahead of schedule, and didn't wait around for a signature. By the time I pulled into the outskirts of Amarillo, I picked a deserted lot behind a rusty chain-link fence. The place was dead quiet, not a single car in sight, and it felt like the kind of spot that held its secrets close. That night, exhaustion hit me like a hammer. I didn't bother shutting down completely. Heater running, curtains drawn, I passed out instantly. Morning hit with a sting of ice clinging to the inside of the windows. My own breath fogged thick across the glass. When I tried the ignition, the engine refused to roar. Battery dead. Confused, I swung my legs down and froze. My boots weren't where I left them. Usually tossed haphazardly by the right wall, now they sat neatly on the left, laces looped together, lined up like someone had gone to the trouble of arranging them. I stared at them a long minute. My hands trembled without me realizing it. Then I reached for the curtain separating cab from sleeper. Half shielded, frost clinging to the window, a word had been dragged across the glass from the inside. The letters were jagged, crude, but deliberate. I didn't touch it, didn't move anything, didn't zip my jacket. I climbed out and walked, just walked, 2 miles to the nearest Love's truck stop, never once glancing back. Once there, I replaced everything I could. Bought a full set of clothes off the rack, used a burner phone to call a tow. My old rig? Hauled off, chopped up, sold in pieces. I made sure to flag it in every registry I could. Decommissioned. Out of sight, out of mind. Then I invested in a new truck. Paid for it with credit I probably shouldn't have. Installed cameras I didn't fully understand. Mapped every stop, logged every mile, every hour, every temperature reading. I documented it all. Photos, times, dates, even the tiniest routine details. Night driving? Gone. Winter routes into Wyoming? I refused every single one. Looking back, I realize I never just saw things. There was a weight to it, a presence that didn't belong. Every hint, the shifted tools, the sock, the frost letters, they weren't accidents. They were warnings, or worse, markers that I was being watched by something that didn't care about laws, maps, or sanity. I still drive, but only on roads I know. The kind where snow stops at the tree line and the CB chatter is enough to remind you someone else is out there. Cameras running constantly, eyes on every corner. And when winter rolls in, I check every hatch, every lock, twice, sometimes 3 times. I've stopped leaving the cab even for a minute if the lot is empty. That's how it ended. The run itself is gone, but the shadow of it? That follows me every time the wind cuts across the plains. Story 6. Name's Lennox. That winter, I was hauling frozen produce out of Spokane, headed straight for Chicago. Early December, and the weather already smelled like trouble. A sneaky kind that coats everything in ice before you even realize it. I had 3 days to make the run, maybe a bit more if the highways played nice. My company didn't hover. All they cared about was the freight hitting its slot. Route, stops, maintenance, my call. Play it smart, stay ahead of storms, and you could carve a few quiet hours of road all to yourself. I took Route 84 east, then veered onto I-90. Eyes glued to forecasts the whole way. A Canadian front was barreling south like a white wall, cold enough to freeze hair on your hands. My thinking, stay ahead of it, or be trapped under snow for days. If the load didn't arrive on time, the blame landed squarely on me. I rolled into a half-empty truck stop just west of Bismarck to fuel and stretch. The place looked like it had been drained of life over decades. One pump wrapped in plastic. coffee signs yellowed like old newspaper. The clerk behind the counter didn't glance up when I came in. I grabbed a sandwich, crusty and dry, poured a cup of coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since the previous Tuesday. Outside, the air cut sharp, gnawing at my face like frostbite playing with your nose. Checked the radar. Purple and blue bands creeping toward Fargo. Sub-zero temps, gusts slicing up to 50 miles per hour. I hovered there a few minutes, debating, push forward or find shelter. If I made it to Fargo, I could at least duck into a better stop. Decision made, I slid back behind the wheel, heater cranked, and pushed on. Around 9 that night, I was maybe 15 miles east of Steele. Endless flat highway stretching out like a frozen ocean. Not just quiet, but utterly dead. No headlights, not a single blinking tail light. Nothing moving in either direction. Even the CB channels were dead. Static hissed at me. No chatter, no weather updates, no bored trucker banter. Just nothing. I guess the storm had scared off the other drivers early. Guess I was the fool who kept rolling. Wind picked up, but visibility remained manageable. Slow, thick snowflakes drifting down. Dash read -12. Colder than it felt, but I'd handled worse. Then I saw it. A rest area 2 miles ahead. White letters on green. Standard signage, but I didn't remember any rest stops here. I'd driven this stretch multiple times. Usually it was nothing until Fargo. I glanced at the GPS. No mark. Older stops sometimes slipped through digital maps, so I shrugged it off. But the sign looked wrong. Pristine, almost new, no rust. Yet the post it sat on was a nightmare of age, eaten by years of salt and weather. Sign and pole didn't match, like someone painted halfway through. I should have kept going. But curiosity, tiredness, and caffeine made me slow down and take the exit. The area was tiny, a narrow loop with a trash can and a single windowless building, probably bathrooms. No lights, no vending machines, nothing suggesting it had seen use in decades. Yet the snow wasn't deep. Someone had cleared it recently. I parked near the end, killed the engine, stepped out to stretch. That's when I saw it. Another truck, barely visible beyond the tree line, 20, maybe 30 yards off. Trees thin, just enough to blur its outline. White trailer, unmarked, angled like it slid sideways and froze there. Cab door wide open, snow starting to collect on the steps. No hazards, no driver. Abandoned, somehow alive. I called out. Nothing. So I walked closer. Footprints in the snow, just a few circling the cab, as if the driver wandered, stopped, vanished. No trail forward, no drag marks, no fall. Just 10 or 12 steps that ended abruptly. I climbed the side steps, peered inside. Spotless, eerily clean. No wrappers, no bags, no cords, no coins. Just a faint chemical stench mixed with diesel. And one object on the seat. A black thermos, plain, unmarked, perfect. I picked it up. Warm. Then my headlights died. Fast. I spun, heart skipping. Battery? Fuse? When I stepped down and looked back, my rig was gone. Not moved. Vanished. Snow untouched. Air still. My stomach sank. I ran to where it had been. Nothing. No marks, no warmth. Like it had never existed. Pulled my phone. No signal. Not a flicker. I went to the bathroom building, hoping heat, payphone, something. Door creaked stiffly. Inside, empty. No stalls, no lights, no graffiti, just cold cement and the echo of nothing. Then my phone buzzed. No number. Message. Don't leave the truck. Heart thumped hard. I scanned the lot. Still frozen. Trees motionless. Another buzz. You broke the pattern. Third. You'll have to finish the route now. I looked up. The white trailer stood in front of me, moved silently, engine off. Facing the bathrooms. Back doors wide, interior lights glowing. A figure inside. Still. Watching. Not moving, not speaking. I didn't wait. I ran. Into the trees, hoping to find the highway, or at least a main road. Branches clawed my jacket. I slipped once, cut my knee, didn't even feel it. Kept moving until snow underfoot vanished. Then noticed no sound. Looked back. Boots weren't leaving prints. Headlights slashed through the dark. Warm, steady. My truck, parked on a narrow road that hadn't been there before. Lights on, engine humming like it had never quit. I climbed in, didn't slow, drove straight through to Minnesota. Found a distribution center just outside Minneapolis. Dropped the trailer on the lot. Didn't wait. Didn't say a word. I never told the company what happened. Just said the roads were worse than expected. Northern routes? Not for me. At least for a while. That rig? Sold that spring. After that run, I swore off night hauls through winter storms. But work's work, and a couple weeks later, I found myself behind the wheel again. This time, a lighter load, running produce east out of Spokane. The Midwest winter was just warming up, and the sky threatened snow the whole way. I planned 3 days, maybe 2.5 if I pushed it. My company? Didn't care how I got it done, only that it got done. Route 84 east, then I-90. Forecasts flashing red. Cold air rolling down from Canada, fast, ruthless. Keep ahead of it, or you're buried for days. Load's mine to manage. If it's late, the blame is yours. I pulled into a faded truck stop west of Bismarck to fuel and grab a bite. Half alive, half abandoned. Pump taped over. Coffee signs faded yellow, peeling edges. The counter guy didn't bother looking up. I grabbed a sandwich crusty enough to cut your gums, poured coffee that tasted like old wood smoke. Air outside cut me like razors. Sub-zero bite that sank through the coat the second I stepped out. Radar lit up. Blue bands crawling toward Fargo, gusts over 50. 5 minutes of frozen indecision. Push or stop. Fargo seemed the safer bet, at least a roof and some warmth. So I got back in, heater on, truck humming. By 9 p.m., about 15 miles east of Steele, the highway stretched forever, flat and quiet. Dead quiet. Not just no traffic, nothing. CB was silent, static only. No chatter, no weather, no bored trucker talk about nothing. Only emptiness. Probably everyone else tucked in from the storm. Guess I was the idiot who kept going. Wind picked up. Visibility decent. Snow thick, slow. Dash read -12. Colder than it felt, but I'd handled worse. Then I saw it. Rest area. 2 miles. White letters, green background. Standard, but I didn't remember one here. This stretch was always barren until Fargo. GPS said nothing. Sometimes old stops skip maps. Maybe that. But the sign looked too fresh. No rust, perfect paint. Pole supporting it looked ancient, weathered, eaten by decades of salt. Sign and post clashed, like someone slapped one up without caring about the other. Should have kept rolling. But curiosity, fatigue, and caffeine made me slow down. Lot narrow. Single windowless building, probably bathrooms. No lights, no machines, nothing. Snow partially cleared, enough to park. I killed the engine, stepped down. That's when I saw it. Another truck, hidden just beyond a sparse tree line, 20 yards off. White trailer, unmarked, angled sideways. Cab door open. Snow building on steps. No hazards, no driver. Dead, abandoned. I called. Silence. Walked closer. Footprints in the snow, just a few, circling the cab. No forward trail, no drag, no fall. 10 steps, stop. Climbed the steps, peered in. Spotless, eerie clean. No wrappers, bags, cords, coins, just a faint chemical tinge mixed with diesel. One object, a small black thermos, plain, warm. Headlights died, fast, spun. Engine running, battery, fuse, step down. My rig? Gone, vanished. No marks, no warmth, nothing. Stomach plummeted. Ran back. Nothing. Snow untouched, air frozen. Phone dead. Walked to bathroom building. Door stiff. Inside, 4 walls, cement cold, no stalls, no lights, no graffiti. Then my phone buzzed. No number. Message. Don't leave the truck. Heart kicked. I scanned the lot. Still. Trees unmoving. Another buzz. You broke the pattern. Third. Finish the route now. Looked up. White trailer moved. Silent. Engine off. Facing bathrooms. Back doors open. Interior light glowing. Figure standing inside. Motionless. Watching. Didn't wait. Ran. Into trees, claws scratching jacket. Slipped once, cut knee, didn't care. Kept moving until snow underfoot vanished. Looked back. No prints. Boots leaving nothing. Headlights through the trees. Warm. Steady. My truck, parked on a narrow road that wasn't there before. Engine running. Lights on. I got in. Didn't slow. Drove straight through to Minnesota. Found a distribution center near Minneapolis. Dropped the trailer. No check-in. No words. Never told the company. Just, roads worse than expected, northern routes off limits. That rig? Sold that spring. After that, winter night runs were off the table. I swapped for day hauls. Mapped every stop, logged every mile. Installed cameras I barely knew how to use, each move calculated. I wouldn't risk the unseen again. Weeks later, a new truck arrived. Same route, same cargo. I double-checked everything. Monitored stops, checked locks, even avoided old, abandoned parking lots. Couldn't shake the memory. The empty trailer, the thermos, those silent footsteps in snow that led nowhere. Every night, I'd wake, convinced I'd see those boots again, following me along frozen roads. I quit night runs completely. Avoided Wyoming and the northern passes in winter. Credit cards maxed for safety upgrades, cameras, GPS trackers. Every meal, every fuel stop documented. Photos, logs, timestamps. Nothing left to chance. The old rig? Gone, chopped, sold for parts. I marked it decommissioned in every registry. That winter, I learned the road isn't just asphalt and snow. There's something else, waiting. Quiet, patient, shifting. Something that slips in when you're tired or overconfident. Tracks that vanish, trucks that appear where none should. Places that shouldn't exist. That's the lesson I carried etched in every mile since. I still drive today, but never in darkness, never when the storm's coming fast. I know now, it's not just about the ice or snow. It's about noticing the things you shouldn't, and trusting what you feel, even when nothing is there. Story 7. I was 38 when this went down. At the time, I was still running long hauls from Linton to Merrow Bend, just under 1,100 miles of flat, mostly quiet interstate. Winter was in full swing, and the roads were slick with snow and ice. I'd been doing that same stretch for 3 years, every year through January and February. Weirdly, I liked it. Might sound crazy, but when you get into the rhythm of the wheel, the cab starts to feel more like home than your actual house. Fewer distractions, fewer surprises. Just me, the truck, and the constant hiss of tires sliding over frozen pavement. It was a Wednesday night, mid-January. I remember that part clear as day. I'd been stuck at a late shipment in Eldridge, waiting forever. Pulled out around 9 p.m., already pushing it. Forecast was ugly, but I figured I could make decent time before the snow got serious. I'd done it plenty of times before. By the time I crossed the Wyoming state line, the flakes were falling steady, sideways, stinging my windshield. Not enough to stop me, just enough to make me lean into the wheel a bit, tighten my grip. About 20 miles west of Tustin, I spotted a rig pulled onto the shoulder. Hazards blinking slow, painting red streaks across the snow. Standard. Plenty of drivers stopped out here to check chains or catch a breather. I slowed down, like any good road dog. This guy didn't wait for me to slow enough for eye contact. He stepped out. No gloves, no hat. Just bare hands, a safety vest over a dark hoodie. That set off every alarm in my head. I hit channel 19 on the CB. "You all right back there?" Static. Then, "Battery dead. Heat's out. Can you give me a lift to Kell?" Kell was about an hour up the road, not around the corner. Hesitation. I don't usually stop for anyone. Not truckers, not hitchhikers, no one. Too many horror stories out there. But it was dropping fast, and if his rig was really dead, he wasn't going to last in this weather. 5 seconds later, I eased over. He climbed in, silent. No bag, no thermos. Close enough to see his face, I realized he looked older than expected. Mid-40s, maybe. Pale, wind-ripped skin, raw patches around his lips. He smelled off. Not diesel, not snow, not sweat. Metal. Like a pocket full of old coins in a cold steel box. I handed him my thermos, coffee from my last stop in Eldridge. He sipped, handed it back. No thanks. Didn't speak, just stared straight ahead. A minute passed, then words. "You run this route a lot?" "Every other week." He nodded, slow, deliberate, like that confirmed something. "You know the pull-off near the old power station?" I glanced at him. Yeah, I knew it. An old service road I'd passed 100 times but never turned down. Mostly snowed over. GPS showed nothing. Power station long gone, torn down years back. "Turn off there." I blinked. "I thought you wanted to get to Kelvin." No reply, just stared, face blank. After a beat, "There's someone I need to find." Weird passengers happen all the time. Sleeping, talking to themselves, selling junk. This wasn't like that. He wasn't broken down. He was other. Beyond normal. I kept driving, figuring I'd get him to town and let him sort it out. 10 miles later, he pointed. There. The snow-covered road, invisible except for faint shadows, unmarked, dark. "I'm not taking a rig down there," I said. "I'll take you to town or call someone." He didn't blink. "You pick me up," Yes, I said. The way he said it, like a fact etched in stone. Not a threat, but a line crossed. Something shifted when I stopped. Mirrors checked. No lights behind. No sign ahead. Just white nothing, the sound of snow whispering past the tires. I said again, firmer. No, off-road isn't happening. Calm as ice, he said, I've been waiting 4 winters. You're the first one to stop. That's when I noticed something. My side of the cab had wet boots, salt crust, puddles. Normal. His? Bone dry. Not a hint of snow. Like he'd appeared without stepping in a single flake. My stomach turned. I said nothing. Pressed the gas harder. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. Metal stink still thick in the cab. A minute later, he leaned slightly toward me. You missed your turn. I kept eyes on the road. We're going to Kelvin. He smiled. Small, lips cracking, stretching unnaturally. No, we're not. Then the CB lit up. Northbound. You okay? You're swerving. I looked. A rig closing fast, horn blaring, lights slicing through the snow. He said, Don't listen. That did it. Brakes slammed. Trailer fishtailed. Heart pounding, hands white-knuckled. Rig behind honked again. Closer. I pulled over, cut the engine, turned to tell him to get out. Empty seat. No slam, no footprints, just the thermos still warm. Legs shaky, I climbed down. The other driver approached, bundled up. You good? You were all over the road. Told him everything, about the pickup, the request, the service road. He listened, expression steady, then said, You're not the first. He jogged back, came with a laminated newspaper clipping. Headline: Truck driver froze to death near the old pull-off. Engine failure. No heat. Parked during a storm. No one stopped in time. I didn't sleep much that night. The image of that empty seat and the thermos burned in my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him sitting there, pale and still, like he'd been carved out of frost. The roads out of Wyoming were worse than usual. Snow whipped sideways, stinging my face when I opened the sleeper door for a quick stretch. My fingers were stiff from the cold, and every gust sounded like bones cracking somewhere just off the highway. I kept checking the mirrors, half expecting to see him appear again. Nothing. Just the white blur of snow behind me, endless fields on either side. The CB was dead, no static, no chatter. Just silence so thick it pressed against my skull. My hands gripped the wheel like I was trying to hold the road together. Every shadow, every movement of the falling snow felt alive. By mid-morning, I rolled into a rest stop near Fargo. I didn't want to, but I needed fuel. Inside, it smelled of burnt coffee and industrial cleaner, the fluorescent lights buzzing above. I grabbed a sandwich and coffee, hands shaking, but didn't sit. Didn't linger. Outside, the snow had piled higher, wind pushing drifts across the lot. I half expected to see him standing at the edge, pale and motionless, just watching. Back on the interstate, visibility dropped. Flurries became a wall, whiteout conditions that made the highway vanish. I slowed, cautiously, gripping the wheel, heart thudding. That's when I noticed the first of the footprints. Not mine, not from any trucker. They led alongside the rig, perfectly spaced, walking as if nothing existed but me and that road. I scanned the roadside. Trees blurred in the snow, shadows stretching where no light should reach. The prints stopped abruptly, no marks leading back. Just ended. My stomach sank. Whoever, or whatever made them, was standing somewhere in that frozen nothing. Waiting. Hours later, near the edge of northern Minnesota, I noticed a structure through the haze. A small distribution hub, lights dim through the falling snow. Relief and dread tangled in my chest. I parked the rig on the edge of the lot, didn't even wait for a guard or sign-in. Slid out, boots crunching over frozen salt and snow. Inside, it smelled of diesel and damp cardboard. I left the trailer, keys in hand, careful. That night, I stayed in the sleeper cab, heater barely keeping the chill at bay. I kept scanning mirrors, doors, even the shadows inside the cab. Nothing moved, nothing breathed. But every creak of the frame, every tap of snow against the metal felt deliberate, like a whisper just out of hearing. Next morning, frost had glazed the windows thick. I tried the engine. Dead battery. Cold enough to crack the edges of the windshield with tiny frost lines. I swung my legs down, boots landing on the wrong side of the cab floor. They'd been neatly placed there, laces looped. Always left them on the right. Always. I stared. The frost on the glass. A single word dragged finger deep through the ice. Wait. I didn't move. Didn't touch keys, didn't zip my jacket. Something heavy pressed against my chest, like the air itself had grown solid. My pulse hammered. I left the rig, walked through the lot, snow crunching underfoot. Every shadow seemed to twitch, stretch, curl toward me. Trees at the edge of the property twisted in shapes that shouldn't exist. My boots left prints this time. Or I thought they did. When I looked back, the rig wasn't where I left it. Not moved an inch. Not yet, somehow. Different. Headlights cutting through the snow like warm knives. Engine running, like it had never quit. The trailer sat straight, lights glowing softly inside. I climbed in, no thought, just drove. The interstate unwound before me, white and endless. No other rigs, no traffic. Just me, the storm, and the feeling of eyes pressing from the rear view. I didn't stop, didn't slow. Kept the wheel tight, gripping every inch. By late afternoon, I rolled into a small town outside Minneapolis, a warehouse that looked abandoned, but lights flicked on inside, welcoming in a strange, unnatural way. I dropped the trailer. No paperwork, no signatures, no one to check me. The snow hissed around the lot, wind tearing across the asphalt like claws. I didn't look back. I never reported it. Told the company the roads were worse than expected. No northern routes for a while. The rig? Sold that spring. Scrapped in pieces. Every registry updated. Decommissioned. Every record wiped. Every memory burned with ice in my mind. I bought a new rig with credit I shouldn't have used. Installed cameras I barely knew how to operate. Tracked every mile, every stop, every hour of driving. Never again on a winter run north of the Twin Cities. I didn't stop for hitchers. Didn't linger at rest areas. Every stretch of road became a map of caution. Every night, a countdown. Even now, years later, I feel it. The way snow whispers when the wind shifts. The hollow gaps between headlights when the highway goes quiet. Sometimes, when I drive alone, I swear I see the reflection of pale eyes in my mirrors, staring back, patient, waiting. And I remember the thermos. Still warm. That night on the edge of the storm taught me something I can't unlearn. Some things on the road don't follow rules. Some things don't wait for traffic, for common sense, for reason. They just are. And if you stop, if you pause, they take notice. I keep driving. I always keep driving. But every winter, when the snow falls sideways and the roads vanish into white, I remember. And I pray the next rig doesn't see him first. Story 8. I've been hauling freight out of Riverton since my early 20s. Every winter, I ran the northern routes through the mountains, up near Brenton, and looped back with whatever loads came back from the depots. I knew these roads like the back of my hand. Snow, ice, whiteouts, spinouts, seen them all. My hands didn't flinch anymore when the trailer fishtailed. Muscle memory took over. Years on the road teach you more than courage. That winter, I was trying to avoid the main interstate through Montlair. Construction zones, jackknifed rigs, pile-ups. It was chaos. Back roads weren't pretty, but they were quiet. I liked the rhythm of them. No sudden stops, no flashing brake lights in my mirrors. The load was simple. Frozen produce from eastern Riverton to a depot outside Brenton. Tank full, truck clean, GPS humming. Clear skies in the morning, roads dry, all lined up perfectly. By sunset, I was north of Grafton, easing onto the county highway that cut west past endless farmlands. I'd driven this stretch 100 times. Nothing scenic, just long stretches of snow-slicked asphalt, old fence posts, occasional grain silos. No reason for surprises. Then the dashcam flickered. The GPS said 50 miles until the next turn, but the road ahead, it split. A fork I hadn't seen before. No signs, no warning. The main route should have stayed straight, but here it veered left, a gentle curve that felt wrong. The pavement looked new, too clean. Paint fresh, no cracks, but tire tracks pressed through a thin layer of snow. Nothing on the radio, nothing on the maps. Just a road that hadn't been there before. I took it. 10 minutes later, I passed a fence. One slat was broken, a strip of red fabric snagged on the wire. It stood out stark against the snow, like a flare warning me. I passed it again. Same spot, same ragged piece of cloth. The road hadn't turned, hadn't curved, had been straight the whole time. I knew what I was seeing, and what it meant. I stopped the rig and climbed down. The air hit me like knives. Cold that goes straight to your bones, icy wind biting through my jacket. My boots hit snow that didn't crunch right. Too powdery, like ash. I walked to the fence and ran a gloved hand over the splintered wood. Sharp. That red shred fluttered in the breeze, torn from something. A coat, maybe a blanket. No cars behind. No lights ahead. Just the white road stretching into nothing. I climbed back in, tried to reset the GPS. Frozen. Blinked once, then black. No maps, no signal, nothing. I should have turned back, but reversing a semi on unfamiliar snow was suicide. I pressed forward, telling myself the system would reconnect. But the odometer felt wrong. I'd driven 30 miles, or maybe more, but the GPS claimed 12. That's when I saw them. Orange lights flickering far out past the ditches. Lanterns? Flares? I figured they were maintenance crews, but they didn't move. 3 lights. 4. Each one hovering in place, glowing without poles or wires, no attachments, no origin. The road crumbled beneath me. Asphalt gave way to gravel, then compacted snow. I dropped speed, easing into 20 miles per hour. And then I saw him. Middle of the road, just standing there. Reflective jacket, arms hanging, no gloves, no hat, no flashlight. I hit the horn. Nothing. Brights on. Nothing. I cracked the window. "You okay?" His lips moved, but no sound came out. That's when I knew. Something was seriously wrong. I killed the engine, climbed down. Cold hit harder than ever. My teeth ached, skin crawled under layers of clothing. I kept moving toward him, hands raised like I was approaching an animal. "Stranded?" I asked. "Need help?" No response. Just a slow, deliberate point behind me. I turned. No truck. No road. Just a smooth sheet of untouched snow. Tracks ended 20 feet back, then nothing. I ran. My boots hit the snow but left no marks. Nothing. Spun around. He was gone. Then the flames appeared. 3 now, circling me, perfectly spaced. No smoke, just flickering fire hovering over the snow. Then I heard him. Not in front, but behind my right ear. "Do it again. You know the order." I spun. Empty. But my arms moved on their own. Raised, reached out, grabbed nothing. My legs stepped forward, bent knees, hands pulling an invisible steering wheel. Muscle memory took over. An invisible cab appeared. I sat, the windshield materialized, heater on. GPS hummed weakly. Odometer said 6 miles in 2 hours. Dashcam static. Nothing between the fence and now. I didn't stop again that night. Not until daylight. Rolled into the Brenton Depot, offloaded in silence, signed the sheet. I booked a room nearby with a lock and key. That night I kept waking, heart pounding, convinced headlights were still on, the snow stretching endlessly. Now I stick to main roads. Gridlock, slush, salt trucks, I don't care. If a fork in the road appears that wasn't there last time, I don't take it. I go straight. Always straight. Because I've learned the hard way, some roads aren't meant to be followed, and some things out there, they watch. I was 38 when this happened. By then, I'd been running long-haul routes from Linton to Morrow Bend for years, 1,000 miles of quiet interstate, flat farmland, snow-slicked hills. Winter was my rhythm. The road was more home than any house I'd owned. Less chaos, fewer distractions, just me, the truck, and tires grinding on ice. That night, it was mid-January. I'd been delayed waiting on a late shipment in Elridge, didn't leave until 9 p.m. The snow had started, thin flurries blowing sideways across the windshield. The kind of snow that doesn't stop you, but makes you lean forward a little more than usual, forcing your eyes open, alert. About 20 miles west of Tustin, I saw a rig pulled over. Hazards blinking slow and steady. Pretty normal. People check chains, hit the restroom, wait out rough patches. I slowed down. You do that out here. It's respect. It's caution. This guy didn't slow me. He waved me down, bare hands, no hat, just a reflective vest over a dark hoodie. My instincts screamed. Channel 19 on the CB. Static, then, "Battery's dead. No heat. Can you give me a lift to Kell?" Kell was an hour away, not around the corner. Hesitation. I almost passed. The cold nights aren't forgiving. I eased onto the shoulder. He climbed up quietly. No bag, no thermos, just him. Up close, mid-40s maybe, pale skin, red raw patches around his mouth like frostbite, windburn that hadn't healed. Smell hit me. Not diesel, not snow. Metal. Coins. Sharp, cold, like loose change. I handed him my thermos, half full from my last stop. Coffee. He sipped, handed it back. No words, just stared out the windshield. Minutes passed. Finally, he said, "You run this route often?" "Every other week," I said. He nodded. "You know the pull-off near the old power station?" I blinked. "Yeah, I know it. Old service road, snow-covered, invisible on GPS. Station torn down years ago. He said, "Turn off there." I thought he wanted Kelvin. No answer, just stare. Another pause. There's someone I need to find. I've had weird passengers before. Sleepers, talkers, peddlers. But this wasn't that. This was something else. Already beyond needing help. I kept driving, planning to take him to town. 10 miles later, he pointed. Turn. The service road, half buried in snow, dark, no reflectors, nothing. No, I said. I'll take you to town or call someone. He didn't flinch. Calm. You pick me up. His voice. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement. Like I'd signed some contract without knowing. Mirrors. Nothing. Lights. Nothing. Endless white. I said again, firmer, no, not going off-road. He didn't argue, calm as anything. I've waited 4 winters. You're the first. That's when I noticed something. My boots left prints. His? Dry, not a trace in the snow. He had appeared in the cab without stepping through anything. My stomach tightened. I pressed harder on the gas. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. Metallic stink still clung to the air. Then, slowly, he leaned toward me. You missed your turn. Eyes on the road. We're going to Kelvin. A slight smile. Cracked lips stretching unnaturally. The CB lit up. Northbound. You all right? You're swerving. Head snap. A rig behind, lights flashing, horn blaring. The guy beside me said, Don't listen, that did it. I slammed the brakes. Trailer fishtailed. Heart thudding, wheel locked in my hands. Rig honked again. Closer. Lights cutting through the swirl of snow. Pulled to the shoulder. Engine off. Turned to tell him to get out. Empty. Seat empty. No door slam. No footprints. Thermos still warm. Legs shaky, I climbed down. The other driver approached, bundled in heavy coat, knit cap. You good? You were all over the road. I told him. The passenger. The service road. Old power station. He didn't flinch, just stared. Then, You're not the first. He jogged back to his truck, came out with a laminated page, handed it to me. Newspaper clipping. Headline. Trucker freezes to death near abandoned pull-off. Engine failure. No heat. Same stretch I had passed countless times. Engine died. Frostbite. No one arrived in time. I never told the company the truth, just blamed weather, said northern routes were too risky. Truck sold that spring. I don't take that route anymore. Never at night. Never in winter. The memory of snow stretching forever, the dry metallic scent, that pale figure with no footprints, stays with you. You don't forget it. Now I stick to the main roads. Gridlock, slow trucks, slush. Doesn't matter. If a fork appears that wasn't there before, I go straight. Always straight. Because some roads, they aren't meant for you. And some things out there, they're patient. They watch. They wait. Story 9. I just grabbed a short overnight run out of Cheyenne, heading west through Wyoming towards Salt Lake. Supposed to be an easy haul, one of those late-night gigs where you load up, hit the road, and knock out a few quiet hours before sunrise. I'd run that stretch a dozen times, could do it blindfolded. But that night, the snow came fast, sharp, early. Dispatch called and said to hold off, maybe wait for morning. Closures were popping up all over I-80. Visibility warnings, too. Still, the load was light, the payout solid. I hate turning down a job once I commit. I figured I'd take it slow, be careful, and push through. About an hour in, through the blur of falling snow, something caught my eye. Blinking hazards, maybe a quarter-mile ahead. Far enough that I couldn't make out the vehicle. The road, otherwise empty. I hadn't seen another rig in close to an hour. As I drew nearer, it was a box truck, pulled crooked onto the shoulder, half in the ditch. Not jackknifed, not wrecked, just off. Rear doors swung open. I slowed almost to a crawl and rolled past it. That's when I saw him, standing behind the truck, waving a flashlight. Not frantic, just trying to get noticed. I parked maybe 100 feet ahead, threw on hazards. Stepped out, and the wind hit me like a wall. Snow whipped sideways, piling fast. My boots sank into slushy snow as I approached. He looked mid-40s. No gloves, no hat, black jacket zipped halfway. Skin pale, raw from the cold. "Thanks for stopping," he said, like we'd been talking for a while. "I've been out here a while." He said his partner had gone for help after the truck slid off, avoiding a deer. Engine died shortly after. Load was light, small parcels, nothing hazardous. He didn't want to leave it unattended. I offered my cab, told him to warm up while I radioed for a tow. He shook his head, appreciated it, but he needed to stay with the cargo. "Company rules," he said. Asked if I had a flashlight. His was dying. I handed mine over, followed him to the trailer. He clicked it on, shined it inside. "Mind checking for damage quick?" he asked. "Make sure nothing shifted." I nodded, climbed in. The trailer was almost empty. Damp floor. A faint line of wet footprints led from rear to front. In one corner, a gray moving blanket, crumpled. I stepped forward carefully. Metal floor slick under my boots. Squatted, pulled the blanket back. Expected a box, equipment, something. Nothing. Just the footprints. Empty space, echoing cold. I turned to tell him it was fine. He was gone. Flashlight on the floor where he'd stood. Snow crunching under my boots as I climbed down. Road empty. No sound but wind cutting sideways. No movement. I scanned both directions. Nothing. Not a new set of prints, nothing. Just mine starting to fade. Walked back to the rig, half expecting him in the passenger seat. But it was empty. Door unlocked. I never leave it unlocked. Muscle memory, check it every time. That small, wrong thing rattled me more than anything else. Then the CB hissed, low at first. I hadn't touched it since Cheyenne. Leaned forward, noticed the dial had shifted. Not my usual channel. "Breaker, breaker," a voice called. "You still with me, brother?" Same voice. Exact. The guy I'd just been with. I didn't answer, didn't even breathe, just slammed the radio off and drove. Snow coming down harder now, visibility barely a truck length. Wipers couldn't keep up. I leaned forward, squinting, keeping the rig between vague outlines of the road. 30 miles later, blinking hazards again. Another box truck. Same faded logo, same scrape along passenger side. Pulled further into a snowbank, doors wide open. No one visible. No tracks. Nothing moving. As I rolled past, slow, I caught a shape slumped in the passenger seat. Jacket? Body? Didn't stop to find out. Kept going, hands gripping the wheel tight, mind spiraling. By the time I hit Ebston, just past 4 a.m., I pulled into a familiar truck stop. Parked at the edge, let the rig idle while I sat for a few minutes, shaking off the cold. Heat hit me like a wave. My face burned. Walked to the counter, half numb. Told the woman what I'd seen. She didn't react. looked at me like I'd just described the weather. "That truck shows up when storms roll in," she said. "Matter of fact, you ain't the first." Blinking. "What do you mean?" She poured coffee without looking. 6 years ago, delivery truck slid near Lyman. 2 guys inside, CB died. Tried to hike out. Neither made it. Frozen solid, not half a mile from the wreck. She handed me the coffee. "Since then, people see him, always in the snow, waves you down, asks for a flashlight sometimes, then disappears. Next rig found with doors open, radio still hissing." I didn't speak, just sipped, trying to shake the cold from my chest. Heat helped, but not enough, not in the way I needed. Finished the coffee, went back outside. Triple-checked every lock. Left engine running while I rested. Since that night, I never touched that stretch in winter again. I didn't get much sleep that morning. The coffee kept me jittery, but it didn't shake the image of that truck out of my head. The slumped figure, the open doors, the eerie way the snow had swallowed the tracks behind him. I stayed at the stop for a while, idling, pretending to check the rig. Every time I glanced at the road, I expected to see those hazards blinking again. By mid-morning, the sun finally started peeking through gray clouds. Snow was lighter now, but the roads were slick and gray. I rolled west slowly, keeping my distance from other trucks. My eyes never left the shoulder. The memory of the empty footprints and the disappearing man sat heavy in my chest. A few miles past the last exit, I saw them. Fresh hazard lights. Same as before. Same box truck, the passenger side scraped, doors open. I froze in my lane. No one moved inside, no footprints anywhere. My stomach turned. I gripped the wheel tighter and told myself not to stop. Keep moving. Don't look. But I couldn't not look. My headlights hit the cab. Inside, a shape shifted. A hooded head, pale and still, turned toward me for a fraction of a second. Then gone. Just like that. I slammed my eyes back on the road and floored it, snow swirling around my rig like ghosts. By noon, I pulled into a rest stop near the foothills. Packed lot, trucks everywhere. I parked in a corner, tried to shake off the dread. Ate a cold sandwich and forced myself to check the trailer. Nothing shifted, everything intact. But the memory of the vanishing man lingered, a shadow stuck in my mind. Later, I hit a stretch of road that winds through a canyon. Snow had melted off most of the blacktop, but icy patches glinted under the midday sun. That's when I saw it again. A lone figure on the shoulder, waving. A safety vest, dark hoodie underneath, hands bare, face pale. Just standing there. I slammed the brakes, my rig skidding slightly on a thin sheet of ice. Pulled off, hazards blinking. My boots sank into slush as I approached. Same smell as before, metallic, sharp, like loose coins. He didn't speak, just pointed down the canyon. Cold gnawed at my fingers. My gut screamed to run. "Need a hand?" I asked, keeping my voice low. Nothing. Just that silent stare, too calm, too still. I noticed the ground by his feet. Dry. Not a trace of snow had melted from his boots. Not one print. My stomach twisted. Not natural. Not possible. I stepped back, heart hammering. Turned around to head for the cab. Truck gone. Engine, lights, everything. Not a mark in the snow. Just me. Cold, wind, and silence. I ran, boots slapping snow, trying to get back to the highway. No tracks followed me. My body moved, but the snow didn't remember it. 3 orange flames appeared ahead, hovering above the ditch. No smoke, no smell, just flickering fire in perfect spacing. I felt heat radiate without warmth. Then a voice whispered behind my right ear. "Do it again. You know the order." I spun around. Empty. Arms lifted without my consent, reaching into nothing. My mind screamed, but body moved. Bending my knee, I pulled into an invisible cab. The windshield appeared. Heater on. GPS humming. Dashcam static. Odometer said 6 miles, though I'd felt like I'd driven 30. The road between the fence and here was gone. I didn't stop again that day, not until nightfall. I delivered the load in silence, signed off, and booked the motel. Heart pounding, sleep shallow, visions of headlights and snow stretching forever. Next morning I checked the rig, everything normal. But I couldn't shake it. The memory of the man, the flames, the impossible cab, etched in my mind. I stuck to main roads after that. Even if it meant gridlock or crawling behind plows, I didn't care. If a fork in the road appeared that wasn't there before, I didn't take it. I kept moving straight, eyes on the horizon. Weeks later, back in Cheyenne for another haul, I asked around quietly. Truckers who had run winter routes for years exchanged wary glances. One old guy leaned close. "You saw him, didn't you?" he whispered. "Waiting for a partner. Always appears in the snow. Roads like that, they're different now." I nodded, keeping my voice low. "What happens to the ones who stop?" He shook his head. "They vanish. Doors open, engine running, radio hissing. Never seen 'em again." He spat to the side. "Happens every winter. You're lucky to make it out with your rig intact." I didn't sleep much that night. Heater running full blast, doors double-checked, cab locked. I stared at the snow outside my window, heart thumping, expecting to see that figure appear in the drifts. It didn't. But I knew it could at any moment. From then on, winter hauls changed. I refused routes I didn't know like the back of my hand. No shortcuts, no unknown forks. I avoided snowstorms. I checked every corner, every shadow. Trucks sliding off roads, figures standing still, eyes pale, haunted the nightmares I didn't dare speak aloud. That stretch between Cheyenne and Salt Lake? I haven't driven it since. I'd rather sit idle behind a salt truck for hours, gridlocked, than tempt that road again. The snow hides more than frost. It hides watchers, paths that don't exist, and trucks that appear out of nowhere, waiting for someone to stop. And I never stop anymore.